Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to Newstos. So, Nvidia for the second year in a row is dealing with a pretty major leak as they unfortunately were just hit with a ransomware cyber attack. This is a very unfortunate situation, but some of that information has started to make its way online, and this includes a possible reference for a Nintendo Switch successor. Yeah, I know we heard a lot about that Switch Pro last year, and we all kind of know how that worked out, but this is very interesting as it's coming directly from Nvidia, so we're going to talk about that one today. Now, also, one thing that fans have really wanted to see come from Xbox this generation is improvement over in Japan, and, well, they have just made a complete turnaround. It is quite miraculous what they're doing, so we will go over that one as well. Let's cover some of the quick news first, though, starting off with the upcoming PlayStation exclusive that is releasing on March 4th, and that would be Gran Turismo 7. Now, this is actually historically one of PlayStation's biggest franchises, and I mean, even back on the PlayStation 2, it was legitimately their biggest franchise. So, Gran Turismo is very important to the PlayStation brand, and there has been some excitement for this one because it's kind of taking Gran Turismo back to the roots of basically what made these games so good in the first place. They kind of deviated with that last generation, releasing Gran Turismo Sport, which was more focused on online gameplay, whereas Gran Turismo 7 is going more back to that single-player focus, and it looks like this has paid off in dividends. Reviews are starting to roll out now, and currently Gran Turismo 7 has an 88 overall score on Metacritic. Now, this is actually the highest rating for Gran Turismo games since 2005, when Gran Turismo 4 scored an 89 overall score. So this is a very good sign, and it very much looks like Gran Turismo is back. I think fans of Gran Turismo, or really just fans of racing simulators, are going to be very pleased with Gran Turismo 7. It apparently is a gorgeous looking title, it feels excellent, and I'm also hearing some good implementations of that DualSense controller. Seems like it is a great fit with a racing game here like Gran Turismo 7, so if you're interested in this one, again, it will be releasing on March 4th. Really, this is actually the first big racing simulation game to release this generation, so might want to go pick that one up if you are into this genre. Next up here, we do have a cool little update for multiple Resident Evil games, that being Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 3 Remake, and Resident Evil 7. Capcom has now officially announced that all three of these games will get free upgrades for the PC, PlayStation 5, and the Xbox Series later this year. Now, they're not going into great detail about what these upgrades will include. They just simply say that it will include visual enhancements and that it will be free for those that already own these games on a PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, or even the PC. However, Dusk Golem, which has been known to leak information from Capcom in the past, did actually state this over on Twitter. He did note that this update should bring them over to the newest Resident Evil Engine version. The game should see improved lighting effects, ray tracing will be included, you should see some improved textures, load-in will be much improved as you should expect with the solid-state drives. They'll have improved 3D audio, and then on the PlayStation 5, it will have controller haptic feedback, which is always a nice little feature. He then goes on to say that these games will be brought up to 120 frames per second, which is a very welcome addition to say the least. But really, all three of these games are absolutely excellent. Obviously, the Resident Evil franchise is very popular, and that is for a very good reason. So this will be a great reason they can just kind of jump into these games once again, and if you haven't already played them, please go do so, because these games really are absolutely fantastic, especially Resident Evil 2 Remake. That one right there is probably my favorite in the franchise, but you really can't go wrong with any of these games here. So nice to see that they are going to be getting that free upgrade sometime later this year. Next up, over the last couple days, it does seem like a small little problem did start to hit the Steam Deck, and this was really concerning for fans at first. Of course, this thing just released a few days ago, and one of the big concerns with this console is it going to run into stick drift problems? This has been a problem that's been plaguing a lot of these modern platforms, especially the Nintendo Switch, which is even going through a class action lawsuit regarding stick drift. But in a situation with the Steam Deck, Valve seems to be taking some precautions. That way they can keep this from happening on their platform. But over the last couple days, there has been some reports going around that some fans were having issues with stick drift. And this has drawn some concern within the community, rightfully so. However, well, Valve actually already fixed the problem. They actually pushed out a firmware update that completely fixed the problem, and then they explained what happened here in, well, this is what they had to say. Hi all, a quick note about Steam Deck thumbsticks. The team has looked into the reported issues and it turns out it was a dead zone regression from a recent firmware update. We just shipped a fix to address the bug, so make sure you're up to date. So there you have it. This was not linked to any type of hardware issues, which is very relieving, and this was just simply a software related bug, which they have since quickly fixed. Now, I have seen some fans kind of ask, well, why doesn't Nintendo just do a software update like this and fix the Joy-Cons? But that's actually a different situation because unlike what's happening here with the Steam Deck, that actually is unfortunately linked to a physical problem. Regardless though, it is very nice to see that Valve was on top of things and quickly fixed this problem here. We do need to talk about the Nintendo Switch though, or this supposed Nintendo Switch successor. So what's happening here is that unfortunately Nvidia was hit with a cyber attack, which is never a good thing. This, quite frankly, is not the way that you want to get this information, but basically what's happening here is that some hackers did get some information from Nvidia, and now they're holding that information up for ransom. In other words, they're trying to get paid, and right now they're slowly leaking this information out online in the hopes that Nvidia will see that they're serious and will then give them some money, which will keep them from leaking more online. Like I said, it's not a great situation, but some of this stuff is starting to slowly leak out online, and one thing has really grabbed a lot of people's attention, and that would be some references for what looks to be a Nintendo Switch successor. Now, before we get started, I just want to go ahead and say that to just keep in mind that none of this is confirmed just yet. We saw what happened last year with the quote-unquote Switch Pro. That was very much expected to release in 2021, and we all know how that turned out, so keep in mind, until Nintendo actually confirms it themselves, it's simply speculation and rumors. Nonetheless, this is coming from Nvidia, and it definitely seems like something is happening here, and it is quite interesting to say the least. So the thing that everybody's talking about here is this DLSS source code that leaked out online, and this is something that we have been hearing a lot about over the last couple years, that Nintendo is going to be implementing DLSS on some type of Switch successor. Every single rumor seemed to be pointing at DLSS implementation. Now, what DLSS is an AI rendering technology that increases graphics performance and will boost things such as frame rate. It's a very nice technology that would be extremely beneficial for the Nintendo Switch. Why is this important now, though? And well, that's because that DLSS source code that leaked out online. So when you first look at this leak, more than likely, you're probably just thinking, well, what does this mean to me? But something very interesting has been pointed out here, and that is numerous references to something by the name of NVN2. Now, the reason that that is so interesting is because NVN is actually a graphics API for the Nintendo Switch. So here you're seeing NVN2, which, I mean, if you start to put 2 and 2 together, why would the number 2 be there? Yeah, possible successor or a revision of sorts. Whether it's a revision or a successor, we don't really know. But what we do know is that the Switch OLED, the Switch Lite, and the Nintendo Switch all basically has the same internals. None of them are more powerful than one another, so it's more than likely not referencing something like the Switch OLED as an example. This is indeed something else. The question is, what exactly is this? That is kind of hard to say right now, but it is being pointed out that NVN2 looks to be based off of current generation Ampere graphics card architecture with ray tracing support and DLSS 2.2 technology. There's also references of T234 and T239 in this leak as well, and that is interesting because this links back to something we heard last year, and as you can see here, it was being claimed that Nintendo would be using a customized T234 being the T239. So it just seems like everything is kind of adding up here, and based off of the information that we currently have, this actually seems like a pretty significant boost compared to what we're seeing with the current generation of the Nintendo Switch. Now, again, keep in mind that none of this is confirmed, and for that matter, we don't know when this device will even release. If I were to guess, I would imagine it's probably going to be sometime in 2024, but that is just simply a prediction. What we do know, though, is that it seems like Nintendo and Nvidia are working on something here, and I mean, that alone I do find to be very interesting because with the current Nintendo Switch, they're actually using the Tegra X1 chip, and that wasn't actually specifically designed for the Nintendo Switch. That actually was used for the Nvidia Shield, which I do have. That's actually a pretty good device, to be honest with you, but it was not specifically made for the Nintendo Switch, whereas this time it seems like Nvidia and Nintendo are actually working together on a customized chip, which means that Nintendo's going to pretty much get exactly what they want for whatever this NVN2 device is. I actually think that that's pretty exciting stuff right there, but let me know what you think about all of this. Do you think that this is referencing a Nintendo Switch successor, a possible Switch Pro, or what do you think this is actually referencing? And when do you think a Nintendo Switch successor will release? Let me know in the comments below. All right, so we do have some Xbox stuff to talk about as well. One thing that was very apparent last generation is that Xbox absolutely needed to improve over in Japan. Japan undoubtedly is a very important region, and this is not just because you can sell a lot of units over there, but also because they have a lot of talent. They do have some very creative studios and some popular franchises that are popular worldwide. You take a look at something like Final Fantasy as an example, or even really Elden Ring, which released just last week. That is a Japanese game, so again, it is very important to have support from Japanese studios. And because the Xbox One was just not successful at all in Japan last generation, a lot of these Japanese games, they just flat out skipped Xbox entirely, especially some of the smaller stuff. So they needed to make it their mission this generation to improve over in Japan, and well, they have done just that with the Xbox Series. This is just a complete turnaround, and so much so that now both the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S individually are both outpacing the Xbox One in the same time frame. That is quite a miraculous turnaround, but it actually goes a little bit further than that, because now the Xbox Series has sold 152,000 units in Japan. And while, of course, the PlayStation 5 and the Nintendo Switch are doing much better in Japan, this is a drastic improvement compared to the Xbox One, which sold 110,000 units in its entire life. So the Xbox Series has already outsold the Xbox One in less than a year and a half over in Japan. And now we're seeing here that the Xbox Series S and Series X are both outpacing the Xbox One as well in the same time frame. Yes, this is a pretty incredible turnaround. And again, this is paying off worldwide. You are starting to see more of these Japanese developers actually support Xbox consoles. More Japanese games are coming to Xbox now. We have seen this a lot here in recent years. They have now brought over some of the bigger franchises such as Nier Automata that made its way over to Xbox, which actually launched directly into Game Pass. There was also Yakuza, again, another Game Pass release. They also got Octopath Traveler, Yakuza, Dragon Quest Builders, and the list just kind of goes on and on. You are starting to see more Japanese games come over to Xbox, but one common theme that we're kind of seeing with several of these games is that they're also coming over to Xbox Game Pass. And I think that this is a very important factor as well. We can point to the Xbox Series and just how much better it's doing over in Japan, but clearly Xbox Game Pass is a major factor as well. Xbox fans haven't always necessarily been known for their outpouring support of Japanese games, but with the introduction of Xbox Game Pass and with these games heading over there, I think a lot more fans are discovering these games than ever before, and I think that fans of these games are quickly growing on Xbox. I mean, we're even starting to see some smaller Japanese games head over to Xbox as well, including Danganronpa, and I mean, even Atlas. I mean, they haven't released a game on Xbox in years, but Soul Hackers 2, that will be heading over to Xbox later this year. So yeah, I think Xbox is definitely doing a lot of good work over in Japan. Now, there's still room for improvement here, but I think fans on Xbox that do like Japanese games should be very happy with this news here, that the Xbox Series is having a lot more success over there this generation, and ultimately that could mean more games for you throughout this generation. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, and one thing that is starting to become very clear is that the Nintendo Switch has a pretty insane lineup for the rest of the year. I mean, when you really start to look at it, they just have game after game after game. So I wanted to ask you all, what upcoming 2022 Nintendo Switch game are you most excited for? And as you can see here, you all are very much looking forward to Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, or whatever that game is going to be called. 61% of you all did vote for that. And in second place here, you have Pokemon Scarlet and Violet with 16% of the votes. Then you have other, several of y'all voted for things such as Kirby, Mario Strikers, Switch Sports, or even something like Bayonetta 3. And then you have Xenoblade 3 at 8%. And then last but not least, Splatoon 3 at 3%. Like I said, a lot of really good games here, and what's kind of scary about this is that I'm pretty sure Nintendo still hasn't revealed everything just yet. They more than likely are going to have another Nintendo Direct sometime this summer where they reveal even more games. We're hearing a lot about that Metroid Prime remaster. Whether that becomes real or not, that remains to be seen. But yeah, they probably still have more to announce. So they do have a very good lineup here, but yeah, most of you all really are looking forward to that Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel. No big surprise there, considering a lot of people do consider that first game to be one of the best games ever made. Now, personally, I do like the classic Zelda games a little bit more, but I am very much looking forward to this one as well. I just kind of hope that it has some more traditional style of dungeons, which I felt like it was a little lacking with the first one there. Hopefully, we do get more of an in-depth reveal for this one sometime here soon, and for that matter, hopefully we get a release date as well. It does seem like a lot of people are still not convinced that this one will release in 2022. Nintendo did show this in their 2022 compilation trailer, so it seems like this one is listed as a game that will be releasing sometime this year, but there's still some concern that this game might be delayed into 2023. We'll see about all that, but hopefully this one goes as planned and we see it release sometime this year. I, however, will say that my most anticipated game here would actually be Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, as I am a huge Pokemon fan, but I'm also a big fan of Zelda, so very much looking forward to that one as well. Either way, I mean, again, the Nintendo Switch in 2022, it is looking like it's going to be a very fun year. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.